So when a college student wants to break into penetration testing, we know that the OSCP, it's the gold standard. Is it worth it?
It's kind of a loaded question, right? Because it depends on who you talk to. The OSCP is very expensive. It's not the first thing that everybody should go and run for. I think some other certifications worth checking out prior to the OSCP if you're a college student, maybe on a tight budget or just looking to check out a little bit more of an introductory level resource. So, three solid certifications to go for if you're just starting out. I mean, it honestly might rival the OSCP in some capacities. Obviously, it's up to you to kind of balance the price versus the time versus the effort, what you're willing to put in, what you're willing to pay, what you're willing to sign up for.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Emory Security Podcast. My name is Evan Isaac. I'm a senior offensive security consultant, mainly do web application security. In addition to that, I am the lead technical writer at Emory Security. This is episode 3, and we have a good one for you. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, be sure to do so. We have some fantastic guests on this podcast and many more to come. Today, we have Matt Biedronski, or Gonski for short, and we'll be talking about a few things, specifically colleges, whether or not they're worth it, the OSCP, why it's helped Matt break into the field, as well as other things that you can find within this episode. Let's bring out Matt. Hey, Matt. How's it going?
Oh no, man. Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So this is our second recording because the first one kind of sucked. So we're going to try
Technical
this again.
difficulties. Yes,
Technical
sir.
difficulties. My mic kind of died in the middle, but we're back. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know me, I'm sure a lot of folks maybe watching or checking this out I may have worked with or worked alongside before. But obviously, my name is Matt. I'm 25. I've been working in information security, offensive security for about 3.5. If you want to round up, call it 4 years. But yeah, about 3.5, 4 years now. Primarily have been working in a consulting workflow, work style. I've been doing a bunch of different offensive security tests, and I mean, really, that's what I've done since I've entered the industry. So offensive security consulting is what I've been doing. That's what I'm doing now, and probably what I'll be doing for the near future for some time.
Once a pen tester, always a pen tester.
I suppose so. I suppose we'll see. But
And
yeah.
you do mainly network pen testing?
Yep. So my role, the tests that I do vary from different types of different engagements, right? It could be anything from an external network pen test, an internal network pen test, a wireless security testing, some social engineering in there as well as some minor experience with web application security as well. Every once in a while, there will be a web app engagement that comes up or gets tied onto a network engagement. But yeah, primarily network pen testing is, I would say, the specialty of my role and kind of what I do the most often.
What does the methodology look like within a network pen test? How do you start from start to finish? How do things go?
So, at a high level, right, the network pen testing, at least the pen testing that I do for folks who want to look up a good resource is the PTES framework, so PTES. So most of my testing roughly follows the PTES testing framework, and that stands for the Penetration Testing Execution Standard. It's a good general guideline for how to actually go about performing network pen testing. I'm not going to go into the specifics quite yet, maybe all the tools and the specific doodads and things that I do on the different tests, but generally speaking, the testing will start with a discovery phase where we'll look for a live host or confirm the provided scope that the client for the engagement will provide us. From there, we'll move on to a little bit more of an in-depth discovery or profiling phases, as it's called, where we really look at the hosts that are available, the ports and services that are listening and open and available, maybe any application attack surface, looking for virtual host or subdomain DNS enumeration. Basically, we're just building an idea of the attack surface there. Might be a mix of ports and services, web applications, maybe cloud resources as well, storage buckets, or different sort of authentication portals, which are essentially applications. Start us off with discovery, attack surface identification, bring all that information together, and then work into looking for publicly known exploits, looking to see if there's any non-publicly known exploits or maybe deployment-specific exploits. Maybe a client has a specific application that's not vulnerable to anything or anything public, but in the current configuration that they have it, maybe it is vulnerable to something else that we can abuse to leverage further and obtain some initial access. And yeah, once we identify whether it be public facing or publicly available exploits, or we find some sort of deployment specific misconfiguration in a system application or environment, we'll move forward or I'll move forward into an attack scenario phase, which is really for the clients and it's for us to really demonstrate the impact and build out, hey, from start to finish, this is how we attack a network. These are the different steps we took. These are the different key pivot points, as I like to say, in the scenario or the narrative, if you will. and then finally build a report and review it with the client.
Something that I love about our job is that every single network, every web app is always unique, never the same thing, which I think is fantastic for us because we get to learn new things about different clients, see different networks, see different web apps, and there's just different functionality. One day you'll have a null bind on an RPC, the next day you don't, and you have to figure out another way to enumerate users or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's always different, and I feel like over time, as you do more of those tests, you kind of build a core playbook or a mental playbook. For example, I'm working on an internal Active Directory pen test this week, and I always start with kind of the same thing that I do every time, right? Okay, I'm looking for NFS shares, or looking for null SMB authentication sessions, looking for SMB shares that maybe are open to just guest users or not restricted at all, looking for vulnerable broadcast protocols, and there's always a time, and it happens all the time, where you go through that mental short list and you look for those things and they're not there. So you have to kind of pivot. You got to learn, you got to do some on the job research. And yeah, that's kind of the great thing, is that when you get those difficult networks and you get those difficult situations where your typical attacks and your typical tooling aren't working, that's really where you learn something new and you honestly get a chance to perform a new attack scenario. So, in my current pen test, right, maybe some of the stuff hasn't been working like normally from my mental shortlist, but there's so many blogs, so many articles, so many things and people to talk to out there that I can kind of chat, I can hit up, I can say, hey, what's another attack vector you've been working on? Get a blog share with me, and cool, maybe I haven't performed that attack before, but let's go ahead and try it. Right, the documentation is here. Give it a quick read, grab any applicable tooling, and try something new. So I agree. It's probably one of the better things about the role, but also it's a challenging thing about the role. Right, it's one thing that's almost sometimes frustrating, is you kind of get in a groove and you get used to a certain workflow in a pen testing style, and then a brand new environment with systems and configurations you've never seen before, with you're up against the clock, time box assessment. But I think those combinations are fruitful for growth, right? Growth and learning, because you can't do the same thing every day. You can't do the same thing every week. You want to be challenged and have new environments every time you do a test, because that's how you get better and learn.
Totally. And when it comes to the network security side of things, for web applications, I do about a week or two of testing and then I write a day of reporting. Is that the same workflow?
Yeah, I'd say generally, most of it'll vary, right? It'll vary depending on the size of the environment, or the size of the engagement. But generally speaking, I think a week is a fair bit for the test that I do. Sometimes it's a couple days more, sometimes it's a couple days shorter, but it all depends. But yeah.
So when a college student wants to break into penetration testing, we know that the OSCP, it's the gold standard. Is it worth it? Do you think that that's something that a college student should start looking into, or should they look into different certifications to kind of break into the field?
It's kind of a loaded question, right? Because it depends on who you talk to. The OSCP is very expensive. I'll give my short answer up front. I do think the OSCP is a valuable resource. It's a valuable certification. It's a valuable course to take, but it's also not the first thing that everybody should go and run for. Reason being, it's pretty pricey. So if you're looking to break into the field by yourself solo, I forget, what is it, $1,500, $1,600? It's definitely not cheap. So, you need to take that into consideration, but it does come with a wealth of information, a massive amount of kind of information, really, really solid in testing environments and lab environments, which, if there's one thing that I tell people who are taking the OSCP, it's you got to do the lab environment. You got to work through the labs. If you don't read the PDF, if there's nothing else that you do, you have to do the lab environment. It's the most realistic. It's the most similar to the exam. It's honestly just the most beneficial. But kind of going back to my original point, I think it's worth it, but I think some other certifications worth checking out prior to the OSCP if you're a college student, maybe on a tight budget, or just looking to check out a little bit more of an introductory level resource. PNPT from TCM Security, that was my first certification. Fantastic certification. I always have a soft spot for the PNPT, just because, one, it was the first certification I got, and two, it quite literally taught me how to do my job. I was brand new to the field. I didn't really know much. I got thrown on a bunch of pen tests that I was brand new at. I really had no clue what I was doing, and so I took the PNPT, and I remember I took it and I passed, and then I got put on an internal network pen test, and I was like, shoot, let me pull up my PNPT report. Like, let me go through my notes and go through some of the stuff that I practiced with. And it's realistic, and it worked in that point in time. So, PNPT is a great contender. I know the CPTS from Hack the Box. I haven't taken it, but I have some friends who've taken it. Honestly, if you're really looking for something that is as deep and as full of content, technically, like the OSCP. I don't know the price of the CPTS exam, but I think the CPTS course, I mean, just from what I've heard from friends and the wealth of content and the depth of the technical detail and the technical challenges, I mean, it honestly might rival the OSCP in some capacities. So CPTS, PNPT, OSCP, three solid certifications to go for if you're just starting out. Obviously, it's up to you to kind of balance the price versus the time versus the effort, what you're willing to put in, what you're willing to pay, what you're willing to sign up for. But yeah, I don't think you can't go wrong with any of those three.
Yeah, I think that the PMPT is a great one. I also think that the EJPT and the ECPPT from INE Security are also very, very good. I have those two. That's how I started, is the EJPT as well as the ECPPT. Now they are a little bit different. They've been upgraded to version 2 and they just have everything in there. I think the course for EJPT is 144 hours. It's a lot of material. So between the EGPT, the ECPPT, the PMPT, and the CPTS from Hack the Box, there's plenty of alternatives against the OSCP. The OSCP, like you stated, is about $1,400 to $1,700. You can probably get all the certs that I just mentioned for less than that, if maybe just around that price tag. And instead of one cert, which is the OSCP, you'll get 4. So definitely can figure it out based on price. There are some cheap options like the EJPT, which is only $200, or you can get the ECPPT, which is $400. However, the training is a little bit more. I think it's $800 for an entire year, but that includes the EJPT course, the EWPTX course that they have. Any course material that INE has is within that $800 budget, which I think is a fantastic price point because you could do cloud security, network security. This, by the way, is not sponsored whatsoever, right? This is just me rambling on about what we can
Yeah,
do
yeah.
for people trying to break into the field. And I think that any of these platforms can really help you boost. It doesn't really matter. When it comes to resumes, you're going to really want to ensure that you have some sort of certification. You're going to want a college degree. You're going to want the internships. And that's going to be the segue into our next section is colleges. I know that you said you're 25. I'm 23. So you and I have probably somewhere in the lines graduated within 2 to 3 years from each other. And I think that the degrees can be good and bad. What is your take on college degrees?
Yeah, I mean, a classic consultant answer with anything, it really depends. My experience is my experience, but I went to Penn State, went through a 4-year program. The degree that I received was called a Security and Risk Analysis, which was a very non-technical program. So, we really didn't have a lot of curriculum or courses or projects or classes really dedicated to offensive security specifically. Generally, it covered cybersecurity at a non-technical level. And just for reference, right, Penn State was or is a lot of their programs are geared toward pushing students into the intelligence community. So maybe roles in the FBI, roles in the NSA, roles in the CIA. Again, a lot of the coursework and a lot of the curriculum that I took and passed was primarily analytical based, risk analysis based, looking or creating risk matrices, analyzing difficult situations, understanding different stakeholders and critical situations, things like that. So I really didn't have a lot of technical exposure in my degree. So you might say, okay, well, if that's, how does that sound like it's worth it? I will say from my experience, I think university, at least for me, university college was worth it, primarily because of the networking opportunities you get through going to a major university. A school like Penn State, obviously they're going to have a huge alumni network, just a huge powerhouse networking arm to really get students in front of employers and get students roles. And honestly, I think truly that's the one point for me is why I think university for me was worth it, because I went to really big career fairs. There was a lot of great companies, a lot of great organizations looking for students specifically from Penn State to fill cybersecurity roles. And I mean, I work in cybersecurity today, but this is where I am at, where I'm at 25. And you can't deny the facts, right? That cool. I think that was a beneficial component of it. And I think I found the value in going through a 4-year degree at a big university. Now, obviously not everybody's going to have that opportunity. I understand that. There's definitely a million other ways you can get into cybersecurity without a 4-year degree or without going to a big school. But at least in my experience, it was worthwhile. And I think the networking resources and the career resources are probably satisfactory across the board, right? Most universities, they're going to have networking resources. They're going to have career resources. They're likely going to have some sort of career fair. And I feel like as whatever tier school program you go through, as long as you're taking advantage of resume review nights, career nights, networking nights, office hours, whatever it is that your university has, as long as you're taking advantage of those things, you can land yourself in a good spot.
Totally. I think you nailed it on the head. I didn't really go to college so much to get an education in cybersecurity. My major was cybersecurity and networking. Some classes taught me a lot of things, some classes were dumb, in my opinion. But the true value of college was really the networking with my professors, getting my foot into the door with those professors. All of them were based around cybersecurity. So they had an in already into the field. It was a matter of being the student pet, if you will, trying to figure out how can I get this professor to like me so much that they'll give me an internship or they'll help me find an internship. That's how I got two of my internships, was through my professors, just reaching out to them, talking to them, going to their office hours, meeting up with them, becoming the tutor of cybersecurity and becoming the president of the cybersecurity club gave me leverage for me to eventually pursue an internship, which eventually led to a full-time position. I think that you said something very interesting, which was career nights. We had a bunch of career nights at Roger Williams. I'm sure Penn State also had a bunch of career nights. Did you normally go to career fairs?
When I was a freshman, I went to so Penn State. They have their big major career fair on campus, really for all of the programs and all the 40,000 students there. I went to the Penn State, but specifically the School of IST. And so the School of IST specifically had their own IST career fair. So I had access to not only the major flagship Penn State career fair, but I also had access to the IST school career fair. And it's actually funny, I never went to the major flagship career fair at Penn State. I only went to the IST one. Reason being is that the companies who were at the IST career fair were there specifically to hire Penn State students, Penn State, new grads in cybersecurity roles from the School of IST. So it just made sense. That was the career fair I went to. I went freshman year. Obviously, had really no experience. I had a handful of credits under my belt, but I put on the suit, put on a smile, got my elevator pitch working in a rough state, went to a couple tables, handed my resume out, didn't get any internship at all. It wasn't necessarily my goal freshman year to get an internship. My goal was to just go. So at least I went freshman year. And then once I kind of saw how it went down and saw where, the career fair was and saw what people wore and saw how people talked and walked and whatnot, I came back sophomore year with a little bit more of an objective. And I got in my first internship my sophomore year, which was really cool. So I was working as I guess an application security analyst intern, although it wasn't necessarily focused on application security as I know it today. It was more so, hey, welcome to the security team. I was managing the internal spam inbox for this company. I was doing a little bit of phishing or building some phishing engagements as well. Just cool, like getting involved cybersecurity stuff. They were just working to get me involved in what they were doing at their job. So I learned a little bit on the job, great exposure, great opportunity. But again, that opportunity only came about because I went to the career fair. I put on my suit. I got my elevator pitch together. I got my resume together. How did I get my resume together? I went to the career nights. I went to the resume review nights. I talked to professors. I said, hey, what sort of things on my resume look good? What sort of things don't? What projects from our course should I mention? Should I not mention? So again, it just comes back to leveraging the resources made available to you. And so, yeah, that's really how it worked.
Yeah, I think that when I went to Roger Williams, it was kind of a shock, right? Because I didn't really know where to start or stumble upon. I was kind of just walking in thinking that I would get an internship, which obviously was not the case. And I had to build out and grow my brand, essentially my personal brand, not a company, but I had to build a personal brand. And when I started Republic of Hackers, with a bunch of other people, it not only helped me solidify my brand, but I was able to put that on my resume. I was able to be unique, which is why this podcast is called What Makes You Different, being able to show your uniqueness to the world and being able to put that uniqueness into perspective for prospects, for people who want to potentially hire, was a fantastic resource for me, but also for them, because they can also see, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm live streaming every day, or I'm chatting with people about different kinds of things. So definitely put your name out there, even in the hat, even if you know that you're not going to get the internship. As long as you go there and you are present and you speak to people, there's a high probability that those people are not only going to remember you, but they're going to try to help you obtain a position. At the end of the day, when you're a college student, all people want to see is you succeed. And one thing that Roger Williams did very well, which I'll give them credit for, is they had something called the career class. And what you do in this class, it was 0 credits, or maybe it was 1 credit. I don't really remember. And all you did was fix up your resume, apply to jobs, and really build out your LinkedIn, build out your brand. So when you can go out into the field, you already have your resume set. You have everything that you need to really begin your journey. Did Penn State have something like that?
I definitely didn't have a course or class dedicated to it, but in a similar sense, right? We had the career nights, we had the resume review nights, there were office hours, things like that. But unfortunately, no, I wasn't able to get any credits for brushing up my resume. So that's pretty cool that they did that.
Yeah.
That's
Another
super
great
clutch.
class was public speaking. They
Oh
had us
yeah.
do a public speaking class, and it's fantastic. I don't say
See,
but like anymore when it comes
this
to
is one
public
of the
speaking.
things that, and I know we'll probably talk about this, but this is one of the things that is like so important in our industry and our field that people don't realize. Everybody sees OSCP, PNPT, this cert, that cert, malware, evasion, yada yada. But the reality is can you sit in front of a CISO or sit in front of a director of information security after performing a technical pen test where you do some of those things I just mentioned, or leverage the skills from some of those certifications, and can you explain to them what you did and what it means for them? Not just explain what you did, but what does it mean for them? Right? Understanding that they've got a budget to balance, they've got team members to delegate tasks to, they've got deadlines to meet. And sure, you did your pen testing and you compromised their network and you obtained admin access and you did all this, you found PII on their network, but can you speak about it in an intellectual way to executive members and get them to understand the risks that you found, and also help them feel comfortable in fixing it and addressing it? And that's one of the things that is so important that not many people talk about, is the need to just be comfortable speaking and presenting. I'm not the world's greatest speaker. I'm not the world's greatest presenter, but like you just said, my time in college, I think, absolutely helped me get comfortable in situations like this, right? We had so many group projects. That's the one thing I didn't mention is my program. Everything was group projects. You were doing a group project for almost everything.
Oh, interesting.
And naturally, when you have a bunch of college kids, some of them are showing up hungover, some people don't want to be there. Of course, there were some days where myself, I was kind of like that. But you get a bunch of college kids in all these group projects with analytical, critical situations. Nobody wants to present. Nobody wants to be the team lead. Nobody wants to put together the PowerPoint. Nobody wants to stand in front of the 60, 70 person class and talk about what they did. So naturally, in those situations, I was the one who just ended up doing the speaking. I was the one who ended up just kind of leading the group and the team, because a lot of these projects were, your grade was dependent on how your group performed. And I didn't necessarily like leaving my grade to a bunch of folks who just, I don't know, didn't really care about it, didn't really want to be there. Of course, there were some great colleagues, great friends that I met in school, but of course, it's a massive school. You get a lot of kids who are just kind of students that just aren't really into it. But again, nobody wanted to present, nobody wanted to build PowerPoints or lead the group. So there was just a lot of times where I ended up doing that. And I kind of approached it with just like okay, screw it attitude. Like, cool, nobody else on my team wants to speak in front of the 60-person class. Okay, I'll just do it, right? I'll just do it and get it done for us. And I think doing that so many times in school not only helped me in the career fair, because a lot of people get super nervous. They're like, oh my God, what do I say to these recruiters? What do I talk about? It helped me in the career fairs because I put the same mindset. A lot of my friends or some folks I know, maybe they get a little anxious or a little nervous for client review calls, right? When you do have to talk about the pen test you did. And of course I get a little nervous too, but I always think back to those group projects in college where I presented PowerPoints and different things to different classes. And I go, okay, screw it. Like, let's just do it. So very, very important that if you're a college student right now and you're listening to this, very, very important that when you have those group projects, absolutely volunteer to present. And I know it seems dumb and it seems silly and it's like, oh, I don't feel like doing it, I don't want to do it. But I'm telling you right now, from someone who did that not too many years ago, and I just had to deal with it and just take the presenter role, I'm telling you today it is very, very worth it, because I'm generally comfortable in speaking engagements and presenting to my team and presenting to the executive security leadership of other or of other clients and things like that. So it's very, very worth it if you just kind of bite the bullet and get over that hump and just say, screw it, I'm just going to do it. We'll figure it out, right? So very, very important that technical speaking skills, I'll say, are a skill that's not talked about too much, I think.
A lot of people forget that we're all human. Like
Yeah,
it's
right,
completely fine to make a mistake. We're all human. Everyone knows we're human. The executive is just another person. Yes, they may have power in a company, but no, they're not going to get angry at you if you say something incorrectly, right? It's not something that people normally get upset about. Now, if it's in a large crowd with a lot of people, yes, people may judge you, and that's completely fine. Everyone can have their opinion, but you're the one that's up there. You're the one that's up on the stage. You're the one that's presenting. You're the one that's talking. You're the one that has the courage to do all that, where they're just sitting there listening to you.
right,
So
yeah,
if you put your mindset into that form, you can get through anything. When I first started out, I was in an internship. My final project was to present to the entire C suite at a bank. And I was extremely nervous. I was 17 at the time. I
I
didn't
would
have
be
any
too.
public speaking knowledge, and I was the only cybersecurity person there because everyone else was either in auditing, taxes, something along those lines. They weren't doing cybersecurity stuff. And I had to present a cybersecurity presentation to all these C-suite people. And the one thing that I remember hearing from the C-suite is that you're the best person presenting out of everyone. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, because you were able to take all the technical details and turn it into something that we can understand. So when you gave us the statistic about phishing in our company, we understood that and we can now modify, make changes, speak to the IT team about how we can better fix our posture when it comes to phishing, which I thought was incredible. And then after that semester, I went on to doing public speaking as a course at Roger Williams, which my professor, if you said but, like, you got points taken off. So he really made you think and understand, hey, it's not always about using your brain. Just let your brain relax and you just speak the words. So when you start to relax and figure it out, you'll be a natural in no time.
Yeah, I mean, the message for everyone out there, I would say, is just volunteer when you have the opportunity. If you're in a group project, just volunteer. If you're, whatever it is, just volunteer, right? Just try to get in front of a bunch of people and speak to them about something. And you do that enough times and you'll get comfortable and you'll start to build that sort of that mental callus, if you will, to being scared of looking at a group and having to talk about something. You just get up there as much as you can. Yeah.
And if you're nervous about being viewed or people live there, just start up a YouTube channel and start posting random stuff like we're doing now on a podcast where we're pre recording all this stuff. You don't have any live audience. We can edit stuff out as we go, but at least you're going to get comfortable speaking to a camera or speaking to people. Because when you start to do that, you're going to realize, hey, this actually isn't so bad. Then you start applying to conferences, you start speaking at conferences, people get to know your name, which can obviously lead to resume building and jobs. So something that you said is that you were in the IST school, and in it, was it very technical or was it a non-technical degree?
My specific degree was non-technical. The School of IST did have some technical programs, and I believe now, even today, they've kind of improved a little bit, and they've added some more really technically focused cybersecurity programs today. But yeah, back when I was there, security and risk analysis, SRA, it was primarily non-technical. Of course, I had some courses on database concepts and relationships. I had one Java programming course. I did have some forensics analysis courses, but in the grand scheme of things, the program generally was non-technical, right? I was rarely working in a terminal. Definitely wasn't getting a lot of firsthand exposure to, offensive security testing methodologies, concepts, toolings, things like that. Of course, there were groups and stuff that were more focused in that, but primarily my program was non-technical.
Since the program is more analytical from what it sounds like, how exactly did you break into penetration testing? Where did you get that technical capability from?
Yeah, it's a good story. I mean, to be quite honest, I think I fell into it a little bit. Again, leveraging career resources, networking resources, and career fairs at school. You put on a suit, you show up with a good smile, a good attitude, you prep your resume, and you go and you talk to companies, right? One thing leads to another. So sophomore year, I had that internship my first internship. Junior year, I then went back to the career fair with some actual experience, talked to some more companies, and received an offer for another internship junior year. And then after completing that junior year, I was extended a full-time offer to come on board after graduation. So I said, hey, of course, a job offer after college, that's always the goal. So absolutely, let's take it and see what happens. Um, you know, I don't exactly remember if I knew what the role that I had accepted was. And I know that sounds weird. Let me just explain that. But the role I had accepted had a general title, general name, general job description. Of course, when you're a 21, 22-year-old college kid, you don't really know, right? You just kind of go, okay, cool, I got a job offer, great. So I accepted a full-time job offer after completing an internship, and I started, and they said, hey, you're on the cyber testing team and you're going to be doing pen testing. And I remember the realization hit me like, oh crap, I have no idea, right? I've really never seen this stuff before. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I truly had no idea what I was doing. Just like anybody who just starting out, right? Nobody's born with this skill. Everything that we do and everything that you and I do and a bunch of my friends do and everybody in security does is we all learned, right? Everything we're doing now is a learned skill. So at some point in time, we have all had to learn whatever it is we're doing now. But yeah, I'd say I kind of just fell into it. Some people can chalk it up to being lucky. Some people chalk it up to, oh, you went to a big university. Look, whatever you want to argue. I mean, I put in the work, got good grades, showed up with a good attitude, put on a suit, showed up with a smile, prepped my resume, got an internship, did it again, accepted an offer, and that's kind of, accepted a full-time offer, and that's how we ended up in pen testing specifically, since the role that I accepted right out of college was a pen testing role, which very lucky, very fortunate to have acquired that. I think nowadays I don't want to say it's rare, but it's a little bit more competitive.
And was this before you got the OSCP, or was this after you got the OSCP?
The first role that I got, I had no certifications. I had no real practical training or professional training experience in pen testing. I had one or two internships worth of just general cybersecurity exposure, or actually, I think three at that point. And yeah, so I had no certifications, no professional training, and started the pen testing job. So again, very fortunate, very, very lucky to have landed a role like that. But we quickly got our feet together and stood up straight and figured out what we were doing and worked from there. Initially, I worked toward the OSCP right away as soon as I could, but I failed the first time I took the OSCP. And then I think after that, I took the PNPT, which was a little bit more introductory, a little bit more my speed at the time, because you got to remember, I mean, when I first started, I barely knew how to use Nmap, right? I had no idea really how to do anything. So I took the PNPT shortly after my OSCP fail and passed that. Very beneficial for me, both mentally and professionally, because like I had mentioned before, it kind of actually taught me how to do my job at that point in time. Actually, I'd passed the OSCP in my second role, so it wasn't until about my second year in security that I passed the OSCP. But yeah, so PNPT was my first certification, first one I got done. Very beneficial. I thought it was great and it helped me at the time.
Very interesting story. You don't hear a lot about people getting a pen testing job right out of college with no certifications or anything pertaining to penetration testing. Definitely got a little bit lucky on that end. So it looks like we're running out on time. Do you have any final thoughts to give to the audience?
A couple messages that I think I'd like to just share with college students or anybody looking to break in. I mean, message number one is, right, you don't need to go to a college to get into cybersecurity. I'm not going to go into details and ramble, but you really just don't. I think that's patently proven. I know some folks who don't have college degrees and they're much more technically adept in this field than I am. So I know for a fact you don't need a college degree to get in this field. Does a college degree help? Is it valuable? Absolutely. With colleges and with the cost of a university 4-year degree program comes access to networking resources, career resources, professional development resources, and direct access to companies looking to hire students like yourself. For college students who are in college right now, if there's one thing that you can do to kind of get yourself prepped, or maybe one or two things you can do in school to get yourself prepped and give yourself a good shot at landing a role in this field after college, I mean, first and foremost, number one, do some public speaking. Whether you have a public speaking class or whether you're doing group projects, volunteer to be the speaker, volunteer to be the group lead. It's only going to benefit you in the long run. And then number two would be, get involved, get on Discord, get in your university clubs, whatever it is, right? Whether it's a cybersecurity certification club, whether it's an analytical analysis club, whether it's a pen testing university club, just go to the club meetings, even if you don't know anybody, even if you don't know what's going on, just go get involved, hear what they're talking about, understand the terminology. Let's start immersing yourself in what will be the industry that you plan to work in, right? You can do that through Discord, do that through university clubs, just get involved whatever way you can. Yeah, I think those are my three big my three big messages there. Nothing else to add. No, I think that's it.
Definitely just continue to network. That's the biggest thing when you're in college is all you can do is really network and learn from professionals, join discords, build out your personal brand on LinkedIn, connect with Matt and I on LinkedIn as well. Our links will be down in the description, as well as Matt's blog for the OSCP in case you're interested in going. You can always check out the OSCP blog that Matt has for you. And Republic of Hackers Discord will also be in the description down below. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.